the thing that they decided to do that was really important, they said, look, already in 2 years, from 1935 until 1937, this message that we're trying to carry to other alcoholics is already beginning to change. That as we carry it by word of mouth, one to another, to another, to another, it's becoming more and more and more garbled. And they said eventually, if we keep doing it the way we're doing it, it's going to reach the point where it will be of no use to anybody at all. They said we really need to get this information down in the written form so it will be there for alcoholics of the future as we know it today. They took their information that they'd been carrying one-on-one, word of mouth, one alcoholic to another, and they put it down in a written form so that you and I could have it today just exactly as they knew it in the summer of 1937, and they came out with the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first Alcoholics Anonymous that the world ever saw was a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. And contained in the book Alcoholics Anonymous is the story of how the first 100 men and women recovered from alcoholism. Now, the fellowship didn't have a name. They were still drunk squads of the Oxford groups. So the first Alcoholics Anonymous was a book called Alcoholics Anonymous that contained a program of recovery from alcoholism.
The book says this fledgling society, this drunk squad of the Oxford group, which had been nameless now, began to be called Alcoholics Anonymous from the title of its own book. So the second Alcoholics Anonymous the world ever seen was a group of people called Alcoholics Anonymous. So we had two Alcoholics Anonymous, didn't we? We had a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, and then we had a fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. And in the beginning, the fellowship and the program in the book was one and the same. No difference between the two.
The first 100 people who put the book together, they used the same program that's contained in the book. So in 1939, the program in the fellowship and the program in the book were just exactly the same. Now the book began to go out across the country, and slowly people began to buy this book. They began to read it and study it and do what it said to do. And they would recover from alcoholism, and they would start a new AA group. The first one in California started that way. The first one in Texas started that way. The first one in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and practically every state started through somebody getting the book and reading it and studying it and doing what it says and recovering from alcoholism and starting a new AA group. So the fellowship began to grow and expand from the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And for several years, there was never any question about the program in the fellowship and the program in the book not being the same. But as AA got bigger and bigger and bigger, they began to notice something that the first 100 didn't have. They began to notice the great strength and the great power that comes from people joining together who have a common problem and helping each other and supporting each other. Lots of power through that kind of fellowship. And they began to question the need for the severity of the program that was in the book. And somebody said, you know, I don't really think we have to do everything this book says. Said, maybe we could treat it like a cafeteria, and we could take what we want and leave the rest and everything would be okay. And somebody said, you mean we got to turn our life over to the care of God as we understand Him? And somebody else said, well, maybe let's just give Him the alcohol and we'll keep the rest. And they said, you mean we got to get rid of all of our character defects? Well, hell, we wouldn't have any personality left at all if we did that, you know. And almost immediately they began to water down the program. And the program and the fellowship slowly began to change. And as the program and the fellowship began to change, it got in some cases where it really didn't resemble the original program at all. You know, some AA meetings you go to today, they talk about everything except alcoholism and recovery from alcoholism. They talk about sexual dysfunction, or they talk about meaningful relationships, or they talk about this and they talk about that. And if they didn't read the preamble before the meeting, you wouldn't even know you were in an AA meeting in some cases. So what we're going to do this weekend is we're going to talk about the program, not in the fellowship, but the program in the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah. Now let's look and see how successful this program in this book used to be whenever everybody was expected to follow the program in the book. Let's look at the recovery rate.
I remember years ago I called my sponsor, Franklin Williams, and I said, Franklin, my program's not working. And he said, well, tell me about your program. And I told him, well, I'm mad at my wife, and I'm mad at some people in the group, and kind of mad at my boss and some other people where I work, and my program's not working at all. He said, well, Joe, your program's doing exactly what it was designed for. He said, have you ever tried working the program? Yeah. So there's a lot of difference between my program and the program, I can tell you.
Let's go to the top. Excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a little pamphlet here, and this is my feeling that every alcoholic and Alcoholics Anonymous ought to get one of these and read it. It's written by Bill Wilson. I didn't write it, he wrote it. And it's called Problems Other Than Alcohol. And on the third page, there's a little excerpt there that I like to read. And it says this. He said, sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of an AA group. There's only one purpose. He said, sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of an AA group. And we challenge you this weekend to go back to your group and see if the sole purpose from the comments you hear are about the practice and teaching of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's the only purpose for an AA group.
Let's go to Rule 20, and let's see how successful this thing really used to be when the program and the fellowship, the program and the book were exactly the same.
So while the internal difficulties of our adolescent period were being ironed out, public acceptance of AA grew by leaps and bounds. For this, there were two principal reasons: the large number of recoveries and reunited homes. Now, these made their impressions everywhere. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses. Among the remainder, those who stayed on with AA showed improvement. Other thousands came to a few AA meetings and first decided they didn't want the program, but great numbers of these, about 2 out of 3, began to return as time passed. If my math is correct, that's 75% of those people who came to AA and really tried got sober. I don't think in my area, I know in my area, we can't even fantasize about 75 or 50 or 25% of those people that are coming. I don't think we can even talk about 10, maybe less than that. But I do know this, that in some areas that I have seen, including my own area, the people who are getting back to the program that's in the book, the recovery rate goes up. I have seen that all over the country. And that's what we're trying to do here today, is to try to get the fellowship to go back to the program that's in the book. And the recovery rate will go up.
You know, I'm quite sure today that we can say without any doubt that less than 10% of the people that come to AA are recovering from alcoholism. And I wonder why that's true. It's very simple. They're not using the program designed to recover from alcoholism. Now, why aren't they using it? Well, I think it's very simple. I don't think anybody's telling them about it. You know, we're telling them to come to 90 meetings in 90 days and everything will be all right. Yeah, we're telling them just keep coming to meetings, put the cork in the jug, and everything will be okay. And I wonder how many people we've killed by telling them that. You know, I think AA, and I've watched it over a period of years, is slowly, people coming to us from other areas and other different kinds of programs come in here, and they want to talk about the program that they've learned out there wherever they were, which is natural. That's what I would want to do too. And a lot of the older AA members are saying, well, we can't identify with those new people at all, so what we're going to do is we're going to stay home. And when the older member does that, we abdicate our responsibility and we say, look at what those people are doing to our AA. We turn it over to the sickest of the sickest, who are the newcomers, and we're blaming them for the problem. No, I think our problem is that we don't have nerve enough to stand up and say, look, whatever you learned out there is probably great information, but that's not AA information. Here's AA information. And we sit down and we start talking about what the problem really is. We start talking to them about the obsession of the mind, about the physical allergy of the body. We start helping them see the hopeless condition of mind and body. If we don't tell them that, who's going to tell them? And we talk to them about the solution. We take them by the hand. We walk with them as they work the steps and apply them in their lives so they can recover from alcoholism also. I don't believe it's a newcomer problem. I think it's an old-timer problem. No, we're not going to preach anymore. We're through.